German YouTuber Michael Leidl claims that the Sony E-mount is nearly done, so end of their life. And I know we are living in a world where having catchy title is very important. Actually, after watching his video, I think he brought some solid argument why it makes sense to discuss about that possibility, and that's why I'm making the video. If you want to see his video, I will link to the video in the description box below. He talks in German, so if you have to activate the subtitles if you want to understand what he says, he brings a very nuanced view about why Sony E-mount is nearly at the end of existence. And I speak German, so I watched the video, and I'm not going to give you all his nuanced views and arguments. I will only give you his main argument. Basically, the Sony E-mount is a very mature mount, so the lens range is nearly complete. There's no more real giant steps of innovation coming on the lens front, and in his opinion, a whole system to survive cannot rely only on camera sales and on camera innovation, but they also have to make meaningful lens sales. He believes that within a couple of years, Sony will come to a point where lens sales will be so low that it will be a problem for the business to remain profitable. This is not only a problem for Sony, but also for Nikon and Canon. But Sony was the first to launch a full-frame mirrorless system, so they will likely be the first to experience that sort of barrier where lens sales will really drop and can't make a ton of sales, while Canon and Nikon still have big holes in their lens range. Sony has only few holes left, probably in the tele-prime, tele-zoom range. There are still some lenses missing, and also going weird, like with lenses with 24-70 2.0 GM that are likely to be announced soon. Those lenses are exciting, but they are niche lenses. They don't make the big sales. The big sales are made by lenses like the 2.8 GM, some 4.0 zooms. Those kind of lenses, in my experience, from what I see from what I know from big store owners, those are the lenses that sell, and Sony has made giant leap forwards in the past because their currently available lenses are extremely compact compared to the competition. The image quality is still top notch, the autofocus performance is excellent, so the big innovations and the big step forward have been made in the past 4, 5, 6 years, and I always credit Sony for making the best lenses, the best full-frame lenses as of yet. I think that's a very strength of the Sony E-mount system. But now, according at least to the German YouTuber, he cannot see any giant leap forward coming from now on. Yes, there will be small updates on some older lenses, but that's about it. There's no more real thing you can do to make new kind of big sales on lenses, and that's why in his opinion the Sony E-mount system has reached a sort of limitation, or will soon reach that limitation where the profitability will be a problem. Now he also goes back looking at the history and actually says it's normal that mounts get born and then they die out. Sony E-mount, for example, died out, the Canon EF mount died out, the Nikon F mount, the Olympus 4/3 mount. The only exception is the Leica M mount, but Leica is more kind of a luxury brand, so they are making money by selling their few cameras and lenses for a very high price, something that Sony cannot really do. According to Michael Leidl, Sony will eventually face the problem to launch a new mount, because this would be the only way to make new lens sales, so a meaningful large number of lens sales. He doesn't go into detail what kind of mount Sony should launch, and that's where I jump in, because I have basically two options that are not only based on my own rationale, but they are based also on the patents that I saw in the past 10 years from Sony, where they actually already hinted at possible other mount solutions that to me make sense. So here are my two new mount solutions for Sony. The first one is going medium format. I saw Sony patenting new medium format cameras and lenses in the past years. It doesn't mean that they're really doing it, but it means that they're thinking about it and at least protecting their own intellectual knowledge about medium format lens designs, camera designs and mounts. And going medium format would definitely be one option. And within the medium format option, I can see two variations, going for the much smaller medium format sensor in use on the Fuji GFX cameras or the Hasselblad XT cameras. The only problem I see is that the difference in image quality between full frame and that kind of smaller medium format is really not that big. Actually have used and shot on the GFX 100 and I really couldn't find a reason why should take this camera over, for example, my Sony E-mount. The difference in image quality is completely negligible unless you're doing some specialized work, and there are some downsides because the lenses are bigger, the cameras are slower, also the innovation on the sensor front is slower. There are only currently two kinds of sensor, 50 and 100 megapixel sensor from Sony, produced by Sony, made by Sony, and the innovation pace is lower in the medium format system. So I think it would not be enough for Sony to use that kind of sensor to move a considerable amount of people from the Sony E-mount system to the new medium format system. The second variation inside the new medium format mount system would be to go for the much larger 53x40mm sensor. This sensor is being used on the Hasselblad X6T or the Phase 1 cameras. So this is a much larger sensor and the image quality bump would be more visible, but the problem here has to do with the size of the lenses and the cost of the sensor. So this would be quite an expensive system, which would rule out a lot of potential customers and buyers. And also the lenses are so big that it's really hard to justify buying that camera to, for example, do street photography, normal photography, landscape photography, or when every photography where you travel and then you have to carry those big lenses and big cameras. So I'm really not sure that going medium format would be the real good solution for Sony, because most of the full frame shooters are happy where they are right now and they don't see the reason why they have to spend much more money, have much heavier stuff to carry with them for an image quality improvement that is barely visible in most situations. And there are actually downsides like less innovation on the sensor front, slower frame rate, and so forth. That's the problem I see going medium format. And the second solution I'm proposing today is actually the one that I would prefer Sony to go. If Sony has to launch a new mount, I would love that this mount would still be around a new full frame system, but around a new curved full frame system, which means they would use a new curved full frame sensor. We saw Sony patents about this, so this is not magic thinking. They have the knowledge to design such curved sensors. This would be a game-changing new mount option. If you don't know what kind of advantages you would get on a curved sensor, it's quite easy to explain. A curved sensor makes it so that the image quality is equally sharp with no vignetting, no aberration on every part of the frame, so the corners would be just like the center of the image, and this would be quite a big jump in terms of image quality. The second advantage is that the lenses can be designed in a much more compact and simple way, because the lenses don't need to correct for all the artifacts on the border of the image, like vignetting, aberrations, and so forth. And so lenses could have about 1/3 size less than currently available full frame lenses, giving a considerable advantage for this new full frame system that Sony could launch in a couple of years from now. This, in my opinion, would be the way to go for Sony. The only real problem here has to do with manufacturing and pricing. As you know, sensors are currently made on flat wafers, so making curved wafers is probably quite challenging from a manufacturer point of view. Moreover, it's also expensive because it would be a new kind of technique of manufacturing. So as of now, I don't think we are anywhere close to the mass production of full frame curved sensor, but maybe in a couple of years from now, this will change. If Sony would launch a new system camera around a new mount, using those kind of curved sensor, this is a holy grail of photography, because you would suddenly be able to use much more compact lenses compared to the current full frame lenses, have a simply stunning image quality across the frame. I think that would be reason enough for most E-mount photographers to switch over to a new system with new cameras, new lenses, because you would have some very visible benefits without the limitations of the medium format, like the big size and probably the crazy expensive sensors. If they manage to manufacture those curved sensors the same way, at the same cost like current full frame sensor, or at least quite close, maybe 30% more, but not 10 times more. So that's my opinion about Sony possible new mount solutions. To wrap it up, I don't think that Michael Leidl is correct when he says E-mount will die out anytime soon. I think there are considerable advantages on the E-mount system, an ecosystem that is quite wide enough, has many options that it can survive for years to come. There's also one option to increase sales in the camera business that I didn't discuss today, that has to do more with the cameras. We saw that the Fuji X106 made a ton of sales, so there is, for example, also a possibility to make some kind of fixed lens cameras that are really appealing to influencers, Instagrammers, TikTokers, that could help increase the sales in the camera business without launching a new mount system. So I hope that Sony will consider to make, for example, a new RX full frame camera, but maybe also RX aps-c camera that is way more affordable. So there are also other ways to increase sales that don't force you to launch a new mount. Folks, let me know in the comment system what you think about Michael Leidl's argumentation about the end of the E-mount system. Let me know what you think about my two proposed solutions for a new mount, where you see problems or where you see advantages. Maybe you have even some other ideas that I didn't discuss today and that might be even smarter than the one I broke today. So let me know in the comment system. But for now, let's stay in the reality of the E-mount lens range. I think it's exciting what Sony has done in the past years, and maybe they have some surprise for the next couple of years that we don't know about. That's also a big possibility. And still, I think there's still some gaps in the lens range that have to be filled, particularly in the telefocal length. There's still a lot to be done by Sony, so we are not done yet with E-mount for sure, at least for the next 5-6 years. So enjoy your camera, your lenses, take some real photos, and that's it for today. See you soon.